Okay, I think we should get started. It's already 11 a.m. Good morning, everyone. My name is Joji John. On behalf of MASA, I would like to welcome you all to our today's session, Children's Mental Health, a Shared Responsibility. At the outset, we just wanted to acknowledge that Kerala is going through a tough time due to the recent tragic plane crash, floods, and increasing cases of COVID-19. We sincerely express our condolences to all the family members who lost their loved ones in the tragic incidents. Today's session is moderated by our member Bindu Prasad. Bindu has been an integral part of MASO's COVID-19 crisis response team. She has mentored our mental health workers in the crisis response team. Bindu has been practicing as a social worker in Ontario, Canada since 2005. Currently, she works as social worker and team lead at Black Creek Community Health Center in Toronto. She completed her MSW from Loyola College of Social Sciences, Trivandrum, Kerala in 1997, ISW Bridging Program at Ryerson University in 2006, and obtained her certificate in couple and family therapy from University of Guelph in 2010. She has over 20 years of frontline social work experience both in Kerala and Ontario in the areas of adoption, university student counseling, family services, children's mental health, and community health. Her frontline experience largely includes providing individual, couple, family, and group therapy. Her most recent team lead role involves providing clinical consultation and supporting a team of various healthcare providers. She also actively volunteers in the community. I would like to invite Bindu to take this forward.
Thank you, Georgie John. He's the president of MASFO for the introduction, and to the MASFO Executive Committee for giving me this opportunity to moderate. I can't help but mention the tremendous efforts by the MASFO committee and the attention to detail in order to cater for all our audience here. So a warm welcome from Toronto to our audience across the world. Across Canada, India, and UK, we have audiences who want to learn about children's mental health, parents, caregivers, social workers, staff and students from the Bharat Mata College, Trikakara, and Rajgiri College of Social Sciences, Ernakulam. Welcome all to this 90-minute session on children's mental health, a shared responsibility. We would like to begin by acknowledging that the land on which we gather is the traditional territory of the Wendat, the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, Métis, and the Mississaugas of Skugog, Hiawatha, and Alderville First Nation. When a flower does not bloom, you fix the environment in which it grows, not the flower. A quote by Alexander Den Hejier. He's popular on Instagram, I was told. So today we have 4 experienced social workers presenting on various topics. Saji Jose Nelisheri, Bijamon Peter, Anu Matthew, and Matthew George. Each presenter has 15 minutes to present on their topic. At the end of the presentations, we will have a 15 to 20 Q&A session. Audience, please remember to use the chat feature in the Zoom meeting for your questions or even for sharing your thoughts. We have also received some questions through emails. All your questions will be addressed by our presenters during the Q&A session. Even if we may not get the time to answer to everyone, one of the MASFO executive team will get back to you. So before I introduce the topics for presentation, I would like to mention that the scope of children's mental health is enormous. It's a humongous reservoir of knowledge, information, services, which is constantly being updated, as is the case in other areas of social work too. So what the presenters are sharing are just pieces of this information enriched by their experience and expertise. And they have combined all that into a 15-minute brief presentation, which was not an easy task. Okay, the topics we have for today are Children and Mental Health by Saji Jose Nelisheri, Case Conceptualization and Treatment Planning by Bijamon Peter, Caregiver Involvement and Parenting Strategies by Anu Matthew, Technology, Children and Parenting by Matthew George. We will now begin with Children and Mental Health by Saji Jose Nelisheri. A few words about Saji. Saji holds a master's degree in social work. She's a registered social worker. She's currently working as coordinator, Violence Against Women program at Riverdale Immigrant Women's Center. She previously worked in a children's mental health center at Sick Kids Center for Community Mental Health. Saji has worked both as an academician in her role as board member curriculum design for social work at the University of Calicut and has been a practitioner both in India and in Canada. For the last 15 years, Saji has worked in various community settings supporting children, youth, women, and families. Saji completed a MSW from Vimla College, Thrissur, and migrated to Canada in 2014. She completed a IESW certification program from Ryerson University in 2015. Saji will present on the significance of child mental health, various mental health concerns and challenges, and the contributing factors to mental health. Over to you, Saji.
Thank you, Bindu. Thank you, Maso, for this opportunity. Every child and youth has right to experience joy, have self-esteem, make friends, and believe in oneself that he or she can succeed in life. According to the World Health Organization, child and adolescent mental health is the capacity to achieve and maintain optimal psychological functioning and well-being. It is directly related to the level reached and competence achieved in psychological and social functioning. Good mental health is important for the optimal psychological development of the child. Productive social relationship, effective learning, ability to care for self, good physical health, and effective economic participation. Children's mental health is important to their overall health. Mental health concerns could affect their healthy development, activities of daily living, and academic and social functioning, often casting an impact into their adulthood. Early diagnosis and treatment will help children with mental health concern to function to their fullest potential. This helps to identify the early diagnosis and treatment will help us to identify and reduce the risk factors and help to foster the factors which moderate, or the protective factors which moderate the effect of this risk exposure. According to the Children's Mental Health Ontario, based on a report by them, the children, here are some of those facts. 15 to 21% of children and youth in Ontario have at least one mental disorder. As many as 1 in 5 children and youth in Ontario will experience some form of mental health problem. 5 out of 6 of those kids will not receive the treatment that they need. 70% of mental health problems have their onset during childhood or adolescence. 17% of children ages 2 to 5 years meet the diagnostic criteria for mental health problems. 28% of students report not knowing where to turn when they wanted to talk to someone about their mental health. Canada's youth suicide rate is the 3rd highest in the industrialized world. So this above data shows the prevalence of mental health concerns in children, which is quite shocking and which is quite alarming, that a very few children get support at the right time. Coming to the prevalence of anxiety in children, which is being identified as a major mental health concern. This data shows half of Ontario parents report having ever had concerns about their child's level of anxiety. 1/3 of Ontario parents have had a child miss school due to anxiety. 1/4 of Ontario parents have missed their work to care for a child with anxiety. And 62% of Ontario youth report ever having had concerns about their level of anxiety. And 3 in 10, that's 32%, have spoken to mental health professionals about their anxiety. Based on children's reaction to stressors, childhood disorders are classified as internalizing disorders and externalizing disorders. Internalizing disorders or concerns are described as inner directed and generating distress in the child. Problems that centrally affects the child's internal psychological environment. like anxiety, phobias, depression, and somatic concerns. Whereas the externalizing disorders or behaviors are described as outer directed and generating discomfort and conflict in the surrounding environment. Examples given like aggression, conduct disorders, ADHD, attention deficit hyperactive disorder, and autism spectrum disorders. Here's an overview of the major childhood emotional and behavioral disorders. Depressive and mood dysregulation disorders, where the child feels mostly depressed and irritable, difficulty to sleep or too much of sleeping, lack of appetite or overeating, low energy and low self-esteem, feeling hopelessness and difficulty in making decisions, suicidal ideation and self-harming behavior coming from this feeling of hopelessness, which is one of the major concerns, especially in older children as well as in young youth. Temper outbursts and verbal and physical aggression, which are inconsistent with their developmental level. Mood swings from highs of hyperactivity to lows of depression. Anxiety and obsessive compulsive disorders, which are further classified as separation anxiety, selective mutism, specific phobias, social anxiety, panic disorders, agoraphobia, generalized anxiety disorder, and obsessive compulsive disorders, where the child has persistent thoughts and repetitive behaviors. This is also a major concern in children. The next one is the trauma and the stressor related disorders, which are further classified as reactive attachment disorder, where the child is emotionally withdrawn and where the child exhibits an emotionally withdrawn behavior towards their adult caregiver and do not seek comfort from an adult when the child is in distress. They usually lack social and emotional responsiveness to others. Disinhibited social engagement disorder, whether the child has a reduced or absence of inhibition to approach and interact with strangers and willing to go with a stranger with no hesitation. Post-traumatic stress disorder, where the child re-experiences a traumatic event like abuse, domestic violence, community violence, or a natural disaster. The child has flashbacks and nightmares, hyperarousal, and have angry outbursts with no provocation. Disruptive, impulsive control and conduct disorders, like oppositional deviant disorder, behaviors like temper tantrums, arguing and questioning adults, picking up fights, blaming adults for his own behavior, annoying others, and easily get annoyed by others. Intermittent explosive disorder, where it has a behavioral, physical, and cognitive symptoms that are strong and directed outwards. For example, angry outbursts with tremors or palpitation, uncontrollable irritability, and brief periods of emotional detachment. Contact disorder. It's a group of behaviors where the social norms and rules and rights of others are violated, like aggression to people and animals, bullying, destruction of property, theft and lying, serious violation of rules, and conflict with the existing law. Feeding and eating disorders. This is mostly found in older children as well as in adolescents and young youth. Anorexia nervosa is restricted eating, mostly seen in older children with intense fear of gaining weight, overconscious about the body, and even when they are underweight, they fear that they may gain weight. Bulimia nervosa, it usually eat unusual large amount of food in a specific period of time and cannot stop eating during the binge. And the other is the binge eating disorder. Coming to the neurodevelopmental disorders, they are categorized or they are further classified as autism spectrum disorder with significant challenges in social communication and behavior of the child, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, where the child has difficulty to focus, remain still, difficulty to follow rules and keep things organized, often has forgetfulness and fidgeting. Learning disability, intellectual disability, cerebral palsy, where there's an impaired movement and abnormal reflexes, fetal alcohol spectrum disorders due to alcohol exposure of mother during her pregnancy. Now, what causes mental health concerns in children? What are the contributing factors? Mental health disorders in children do not have a single definitive cause, rather have a number of biological, psychological, and environmental risk factors that contribute to their development. Say genetic factors, biological factors like genetic factors, how mental health disorders pass on from one generation to the other through the genes. The next is the temperament or the personality. Some children are super feelers. They experience emotions much intense and can pick up others' feelings. Of course, family environment. An unhealthy family environment can contribute to mental health problems in children, like parenting challenges, mental health concerns in the family members, relationship issues, domestic violence, parental separation and divorce are some of those that can affect the mental health of the child. Epigenetics, how certain patterns of behaviors or trauma can trigger biological alterations that are passed on to the next generations. To make it simple, like vulnerable parents foster vulnerable child. Social and cultural factors, expectations and norms in society, in the family, in the school, are some of those factors that can contribute mental health challenges in children. Life stressors, physical illness, a child who has physical illness, who is sick, death of a family member, financial crisis. The other one is puberty, which the changes in the, with the changes in the hormone and the biological changes that happens in the process of growing. Emotion avoidance, like some children like to avoid emotions which are uncomfortable to them. A child may try to avoid difficult emotions like fear or sadness or shame through the use of substance or dissociation. So several factors, as I've said earlier, several factors contribute to the development of mental health concerns in children. Children with emotional or behavioral disorders are just like all children in their need to be understood and appreciated for their strengths and talents. They are also just like other children in their need to belong to their families, school, friends, and their communities. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Saji, for highlighting that mental health concerns cannot be addressed in isolation and that we need a multifaceted approach. Yeah, it's evident that each child is unique, and their environment and their life experiences for each child vary, and this adds to their uniqueness. Hence, the need to work from a client-centered approach and also see issues through an anti-oppressive framework, a lens. Our next presenter is Bijamon Peter. Bijamon, he's a trained social worker from Rajgiri College of Social Sciences, Cochin, India, with a UGC lectureship in social work. He's currently providing clinical supervision and support to social workers at Kinark Child and Family Services based in the Simcoe region. Bijamon has over 15 years of experience working with children and youth in various capacities, of which 9 years is with Kinark. Bijamon has been trained by Beck Institute of Cognitive Behavior Therapy, Philadelphia, to teach and supervise the application of CBT, that's Cognitive Behavior Therapy, and has been certified under Harvard Manage Mentor program to build leadership capabilities. Another role Bijamon plays is that of the co-chair of Simcoe County PPP Implementation Task Group, which is responsible for implementing an evidence-based positive parenting program called PPP in the Simcoe County, developed by the Queensland University in Australia. Bijamon, who attended multi-level PPP training, is also an accredited PPP practitioner. Bijumon is passionate about working with children, youth, and their families. He's a father to two lovely young girls. And Bijumon's wife, Neetu, is also a social worker in children's mental health. Bijumon will talk about case conceptualization and treatment planning. When we identify that a child or youth, right, has mental health concerns, and we recognize that they need help, in Ontario, like in other places in Canada, we can approach a children's mental health agency. I'm sure it's across the world, it's similar. We have about 100 agencies in Ontario providing treatment and support to children, youth, and families, like prevention, early intervention, short and long-term counseling and therapy, as well as intensive services such as residential care. Now, Bijumon will walk us through the assessment process. That is, what can you expect when you come to a mental health agency? Over to you, Bijumon.
Thank you, Bindu, for the introduction. A very good morning, everyone. And I'm aware for some of you who have joined from other parts of the world, it could be good afternoon or good evening. Thank you for joining. Saji, our previous presenter, walked us through, what's children's mental health, some facts about children's mental health in the province of Ontario, some of the children's mental health disorders, mental health concerns, and some of the symptoms of those disorders and concerns. Now, in this part of presentation, I will be primarily focusing on when a child approaches an agency for support, how do we determine as to what would be the most appropriate services for them? We need to really understand what's going on through their life in order for us to really help them. So case conceptualization or understanding comprehensively what is going through their life is really, really important to support them and to plan treatment for them. So when I talk about case conceptualization, it involves a process. It always starts with a comprehensive assessment. We want to really understand what's going on and formulate it, why some of those behaviors occur or some of those concerns we see. And then we determine what would be the best treatment options. And when I talk about comprehensive assessment, some of the methods we use is we refer intake report or referral information that's available to us when they refer to the agency. We also interview child and parents to understand clearly at their context as to what's happening. We conduct behavioral observations at different settings, could be at home, could be at school. We also review collateral reports from other agencies or from psychology or from school or whatever is available to us. And we also use standardized assessment tools to conduct comprehensive assessment. And when we talk about assessment or a thorough understanding of what's going on with the youth, it's really important for us to understand the early childhood. Was there any complication around their birth? Did they meet all the milestones at appropriate times? Were there some challenges in terms of, abuse or victimization or kind of trauma that they have experienced? We also try to explore more deeply into the presenting problems that were brought to us. For example, how did they all begin, the onset of that? Are there some high-risk behaviors that we have to deal with here? Harm to self, harm to others, harm to property. We need to really assess and mitigate those high-risk behaviors. That's kind of what we do by deeply understanding some of these presenting concerns brought to us. I'm sure you will agree with me, when we understand a child, it's really, really important for us to understand the family context, their current living situation or the family constellation. What's happening in the family, the relationship, the dynamics in the family, parenting styles, or did parents have any kind of training? Is there a mental health history in the family? And if there is mental health history in the family, did they access any kind of support? And how do we perceive accessing mental health support in general? After understanding a family history, we also try to understand the social context in which the child lives. The social relationship and peer support. Are there any kind of bullying issues, or are they able to make and maintain friendships in their social context? And how do they generally socialize and behave? We want to really understand, if they have good social skills to support them. And academics or the school setting. How do they do at school? Do they like school? How are they overall managing school attendance? In general, is there any kind of challenges that we experience at school? Is there a diagnosed learning disability? We want to understand if there are specific symptoms to, certain diagnosis in the context of school. Well, in our sector, we focus on a client-centered, strength-based approach. So we really want to understand what are some of their strengths. We want to build on their strengths in general to help them and instill that positive, energy into them. So in general, what are some of their strengths? What are some of the resources available to them in the family? Or some of the values and traditions that they practice in general in the family. Then we move to, if there is any specific diagnosis, because we want to understand if some of these presentations are specific to any kind of diagnosis. And the previous presenter gave us an extensive list of some of the children's mental health disorders and concerns. Some of them, ADHD or autism spectrum disorder. Is there any anxiety-related, diagnosis, learning disability, FASD, fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, post-traumatic stress disorder, or eating disorder, or any other diagnosis that we really want to understand in order to support them better. With diagnosis, we also want to know if they are taking any medication or if they tried any medication in the past. Adherence to the medication, or are there any side effects to the medication that they are currently taking? And some of the other factors to consider are if they have accessed any service or support in the past, or is there any other agency currently involved? What are some of the goals that they want to accomplish through the referral? Core beliefs and assumptions that they have. Current functioning at various settings, home, school, community. And how are they sleeping, or how are they eating? I'm sure you will agree with me, if a child sleeps well, that's reflected positively in the next day morning, and that's reflected in the school as well. And we also make behavioral observations, like general appearance, reasoning, memory, judgment, and how oriented they are to time and place. Some of the other factors, vulnerability factors, for example, are they tired? Are they hungry, sick, or did they miss any regular medication? And what are some of the functions of the behavior? Is it serving a purpose for them? Is it attention seeking? Is it sensory? Is it avoidant? Or some of the diversity factors, cultural or religious, or any other factors that we need to really consider in terms of planning treatment and support for them. We also look into, are there any kind of barriers to treatment? For example, to access support, are there transportation issues? Or maybe parents' work schedule is interfering with that, or lack of motivation and engagement from the part of the child, or parents' mental health issues, or lack of awareness about that, or even child's cognitive ability to receive treatment. Stigma is another barrier that we come across. So once we have a comprehensive understanding of what's going on with the child, we move to the clinical formulation. which is, an initial interpretation based on what we have already assessed and gathered or observed. It's a working hypothesis or a current explanation about what's influencing or contributing to a child's presenting issues. It's our own understanding as clinician as to why some of these, problems occur. And when I talk about formulation, I would always say it's not set on stone. So it changes as our understanding changes. That means formulation is ongoing, and we can always reformulate a case when we have updated information. I'm sure people are familiar with, the 4 P's that we use when we talk about the clinical formulation, the predisposing factors. For example, if there is a diagnosis of a, FASD or anxious attachment, abusive history, or alcoholism in the family, or precipitating factors, feeling of abandonment or disconnection from family, or maybe father missing a visit in the Canadian context, or some of the perpetuating factors, like low self-esteem or poor social skills. And as we already talked about the strengths, protective factors, what are some of their strengths? Are they physically healthy, or sense of humor, or a stable living environment, which is important for them to access support. So once we complete a thorough assessment and formulation, we determine as to what would be the most appropriate support available to them to meet their needs. And when I say they, client as well as the family. We look at a treatment hierarchy, what needs to be focused first in terms of treatment. We try to always focus on decreasing the life-threatening behaviors. For example, if there is a suicidal ideation or plan, we need to address that first. And then we try to address the therapy interfering behaviors or address some of the factors that's interfering with the quality of life. I'm sure you will agree with me, it's really important to stabilize their behavior in order for them to be therapeutically engaged effectively. And if there is lack of engagement, we try to use motivational interviewing techniques to support them, to motivate them, to encourage them. We collaborate with them to establish clinical goals and clinical actions and indicators, so that way it becomes a collaborative process. We try to provide disorder-specific psychoeducation for both child and family, helping them understand why some of this behavior occur, or maybe for a parent to learn as to what are some of the presentations of ADHD, attention deficit hyperactive disorder. So we are trying to educate them initially and walk them through this process of providing therapy. And depending on the client situation, we determine it could be individual therapy. And when I say individual therapy, it could be cognitive behavior therapy, CBT-based intervention, trying to help them replace their faulty thinking with more realistic thoughts. So we are working on the cognition to change their feeling and the behavior. Unified protocol is another intervention, which is a transdiagnostic approach, which is based on CBT again. Or dialectical behavior therapy, DBT, which is a mindfulness-based treatment option. Collaborative problem solving, which is understanding that there are skill deficits, and it's important for us to build on their skills in order for them to function properly. Or trauma-attached based interventions for kids who've been diagnosed with some trauma issues. Or applied behavior analysis based interventions for youth diagnosed with ASD. Or exposure therapy for youth with anxiety. And of course, play therapy is another important intervention for kids with trauma. So these are some of the options available under individual therapy. And then we also provide a group therapy, an opportunity for them to come together and learn through interaction in a group context. Some of the examples: Stop Now and Plan, Coping Cat for anxiety kids, Facing Your Fear for phobia and anxiety. Social skill training groups are available, or DBT, dialectical behavior therapy, skill training that's available in the group context. We also do school-based interventions to support them. Day treatment classroom for kids who are not able to study in a regular classroom environment, or other school mental health support that we provide. Another option is residential or live-in treatment programs for kids to stay in a clinical context and learn, or other multidisciplinary considerations in terms of making referral for specialized support, PAPSI for 5-sitting behaviors, or support especially for sexualized behavioral problems, psychiatric assessment or psychological assessment. Ongoing case management, crisis support, that's also available. And for lower acuity clients, we do brief therapy or walk-in counseling. And we don't treat children in isolation. It's really, really important for us to treat children in the family context. So the family work, family therapy, or caregiver support is very important. Some of the programs available for parents are Positive Parenting Program, PPP, Emotional Focused Family Therapy, Unified Protocol Parenting, or even helping them to establish structure and schedule or a reward system, or how to positively reinforce on behavior, or even training parents to set realistic expectations. So these are some of the parenting interventions, and I'm sure you are going to listen to the next presenter in detail about the caregiver involvement and support we provide. I really want to thank you for listening, and I really want to thank Maso for this wonderful opportunity to share some of my learning and experience with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Bijamon, for giving us an overview of the psychosocial assessment and treatment planning process. Bijamon has described a comprehensive process. Many times we may not necessarily have to go through this extensive process. It's always based on client needs, like Bijamon highlighted. The focus is on the client and family strengths, working from a client-centered perspective, a holistic approach, and supporting caregivers and parents. Thank you, Bijamon. So a friendly reminder to our audience to use a chat space to ask questions, or you can even email. We have some participants have also kindly shared their thoughts. Thank you, Ajimol and Priya, for sharing your thoughts on the relevance of food and nutrition and sleep in children's mental health. It's so important. I'm personally I'm a big proponent of that. Thank you. So our next presenter is Anu Matthew. Anu has completed her master's in social work from Rajgiri College of Social Sciences. She's a registered social worker with over 10 years of experience working with at-risk youth and their families, addressing problems related to addiction and mental health issues. Anu has experience with psychosocial assessments, intervention, counseling, crisis intervention in child, youth, and family welfare settings. Anu did her IESW program at Ryerson University as soon as she arrived in Canada in 2017. Upon completion of the program, she joined the Peel Children's Center as a child and family clinician with the intensive treatment services. Anu will soon be joining her new role as a social worker at Roy McMurtry Youth Justice Services Division under the Ministry of Children, Community and Social Services. Congratulations, Anu. Anu will present on caregiver involvement and parenting strategies. As we have seen from the earlier two presentations, it is evident how supporting caregivers is an integral part of children's mental health services. So Anu will talk about what's the definition of a caregiver, the importance of caregiver involvement, caregiver self-care, most important, and parenting strategies. So over to you, Anu.
Thank you very much for the kind introduction. Thank you, Maspo, for giving me this opportunity. Good morning, everyone. As Bindu mentioned, I will be talking about the importance of caregiver involvement and also the caregiver or parenting skills and strategies. So let's see who a caregiver is. A caregiver is an adult who cares about or provides caregiving and is responsible for the welfare of the child. And that can be biological parents, a relative, a foster or adoptive parent, or any trained professional engaged in the care of a child. Let's look at why caregiver involvement is vital when working with a child. So neuroscience itself supports the healing power of supportive caregiver-child interaction. Caregivers act as agents of healing by increasing their role in behavioral and emotional support. At least one stable and committed parent, caregiver, or an adult helps the child to develop resilience. So, when we work with caregivers, the main goal is to help in building skills and understanding so that parents or caregivers can support the child's healthy development. And even the basic brain structure of a child is determined by childhood environment. It is not only the genes that build a child's brain, but it's genes and experience. This picture shows the brain development of a 3-year-old child who grew in normal environment and a child who lived in extreme neglect. So the role of caregiver is so important for the overall development of a child. So before I get into parenting strategies, I would like to briefly explain how our brain functions. This is our brain, and we have prefrontal cortex, which is the thinking part of brain. We have hippocampus that regulates memory and emotions. We have amygdala that turns on fight or flight and stores memories of the event. So fight, flight, and freeze mode is what I wanted to explain today. Some of you may already know it, but those who don't, we have an automatic built-in system designed in our brain called fight, flight, and freeze to protect us from threat or danger. But the thing about our limbic system is limbic system in our brain is that it does not discern or understand between a threat that is real and a threat that is perceived. It is all the same thing in our brain. So your brain naturally kicks into a defensive mode when it perceives a threat or when we are with intense emotions. This can be easily understood by hand-brain model, which was developed by Dr. Dan Hejier. So pretend that your hand is a brain. So, and your wrist is your brainstem, which helps you with breathing and keeping your heart pumping. Your thumb folded in sits in the middle, just like amygdala, which we call the little brain. That is where emotions are stored. It's the feeling part of our brain. Put your 4 fingers over your thumb. This is your big brain, and it hugs the little brain. The big brain helps you to think, reason, problem solve, and have self-control. It is the thinking part of our brain. When we are in fear, danger, or intense emotion, our thinking brain goes offline. And when our little brain and big brain stop talking each other, you flip your lid. When your lid is flipped, it is very hard to control your feelings and think clearly. Can you go to next slide, please? So this is the picture where I mentioned flipping our lid. So that is why when your child is an intense emotion like sadness or frustration, you give instructions and they don't understand, and you ask them, why don't you understand? How many times I told you? They will not understand because the thinking brain is flipped and the emotion brain is working that time. You can even teach this to your children. I have taught this to my children, and whenever I'm angry, they say, Mama's brain is flipped. Let's give her some time to calm down. Next slide, please. So when your brain is flipped and your child's brain is flipped, you are trying to calm your child, it will not work. We need to keep ourselves calm before we calm our child. That is why self-care is very important. So all of us have flown, and you must have heard the flight attendant saying, in the event of a sudden drop in pressure, an oxygen mask will drop from above. Secure your own mask first before assisting others. So as with on an airplane, While parenting, it's important to remain calm and put your oxygen mask first before you help your children. So practicing self-care will help you with that. So what is self-care? Self-care is any activity that we do deliberately in order to take care of our mental, emotional, and physical health. If you don't take care of yourself physically and emotionally, it will become much harder to take care of your child. Self-care activity can be different for different people. You can see a list of self-care activities on the slide. So I encourage all of you to find one or two self-care activities. It could be listening to music, reading a book, sharing coffee with a friend, praying, or some other activity, and deliberately practicing it every day. Now let's move on to caregiver parenting strategies. So as parents, our first responsibility is to love our children no matter what, and the next important responsibility is to discipline our children. But oftentimes we use discipline and punishment interchangeably, but they are not the same. The difference between punishment and discipline is that punishment causes the child to experience three things, that is blame, shame, and pain. The more you use punishment as a discipline strategy, the more the kid will likely to lie. They will lie in future in order to avoid further pain and shame. But discipline, on the other hand, means to guide, to lead, teach, model, or encourage. So discipline is to teach kids by showing and explaining how to do something, while to punish is to inflict suffering for past behavior. Discipline focuses on teaching desirable future behavior. So some of our parents might have used punishment as a strategy to discipline us, but we are in a different generation now, and the strategies which our parents used on us may not work in our children. Even the strategy we use for our oldest child may not work for our youngest child. We as parents have to find out which strategy works best for our child. For example, I read somewhere that toddlers do a task immediately when we start counting from 1 to 10, and I tried it on my daughter. It worked, but it did not work with my son. He started showing more tantrums when I started counting. Then after some time, I learned about using social stories, and I tried that with him, and it worked. So other than yelling, spanking, threatening, there are hundreds of other strategies to support or discipline your child. So today I'm going to talk about how to support your child through emotion coaching. So this is a communication strategy which supports children and youth to self-regulate, manage their stress responses. This is adapted from emotion-focused family therapy developed by Dr. Adele LaFrance. So this can be used as in-the-moment technique to connect with your child and de-escalate outburst. It helps to develop the capacity to manage their own emotions instead of acting out with behaviors. Remember, flipping your lid. So this strategy will help your child to put their lid on. And before using this emotion coaching, always check first that you are calm. Always check, are you calm? Is your lid flipped? If so, take a deep breath, take space, put your lid on, and then use this strategy with your children. So there are 3 steps to emotional coaching. First is learning to validate, then emotional support, then comes practical support. So oftentimes we use practical support without skipping the first 2 steps. Let's go through one by one. The first skill of emotion coaching is to validate your child or your loved one. That is, convey understanding of their experience from their point of view. So you can do so by transforming but to because. For example, when your child tells you they feel sad about missing out on a family event, our typical response would be, I can understand why you might feel sad, but there is always next time. Here, the child may not feel validated or understood. Instead of that, you can say, I can understand why you might feel sad, because you know you are going to miss out on the fun. So you would first imagine why it would make sense for her to feel sad, and then convey your understanding using the word because. So using this validation, even if you don't personally agree, it will have a calming effect on your child. Validation will be more effective when it involves at least 3 becauses. For example, I could understand you might feel sad because you know you are going to miss out on the fun, and because you are really looking forward to this, and because you don't know when you will have another opportunity. So when you mentioned reason number 1, can you go back? When you mentioned reason number 1, your child will be extremely sad. But when you reach reason number 3, the child will be calm and feel understood and ready to receive your instruction. Another example would be, no wonder you might be feeling angry because you had a fight with your friend, because you think you are all alone, and because someone posted a negative comment on your Instagram page. So once we use validation, the next step is to do emotional support. That is meeting your child's emotional need by way of comfort, by giving a hand, by hugging them, by saying loving words, by saying that I understand you, by giving them positive regard, by saying I know you are doing the best you can right now, by saying that we are in this together. The next step is to do practical need. So once you finish validation, then you go to emotional support. Then the last comes practical need, where you offer solutions to solve problem, where you teach skills or suggest a distraction activity like going for a walk, listening to music, watch a movie, etc. Let's see how to use these 3 steps in a situation where your child does not want to get out of bed. You can first validate by saying, I understand you might not want to get out of bed because you feel sad and because you didn't get a lot of sleep and because your energy is low right now. Then you support your child emotionally by saying, I know you are doing the best you can right now. Then comes practical support. Why don't you take a few minutes in bed and then hop in the shower before breakfast? So when you use emotion coaching, next slide, the skill of validation is very critical, because that is what makes your child put the lid on, calms the brain, and make your child more open and flexible to comfort, problem solving, even redirection and limits. And when you start validating, do not be discouraged by their initial responses like, why are you talking to me like that? That's weird. You don't possibly understand me. But they are normal and to be expected when you initiate a new style of communication. So keep using the validation script and be sure to communicate 3 becauses each time, and the emotional storm will soon pass. Again, remember, parenting skills, it is a skill that need to be acquired through lot of practice. It takes time and it takes lot of patience. It will not come naturally. So apart from emotion coaching strategy, I have mentioned 2 other strategies like transitional warnings and then strategy. And also I have mentioned 11 parenting principles, which I'm not going to explain because of lack of time. If any one of you need to refer, please email to Masco, we will send it to you. Next slide, please. So to conclude, there are no bad children, but bad choices, bad moments, bad days, bad situations. There are no bad children. So in those situations, I encourage all of you not to react, but to respond by validating, by meeting their emotional need and then practical need, because it is in their most unlovable moments that our children most need to feel loved. So that is all about caregiver involvement and strategies. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Anu, for sharing Practical parenting tips, a special mention to the emotional coaching strategy, which has proven to be successful with children and teenagers alike. Like Anu mentioned, every child is unique, and often we have to tailor the parenting strategies to each child. The same strategies may not even work with the siblings. As parents, like you mentioned, Anu, we have to tweak the strategies based on the child. Thank you, Anu, for giving yourself as an example, identifying yourself as a parent, sharing your personal challenges too, and validating our experiences as caregivers, and further highlighting the importance of self-care. Before I move to the next presenter, a friendly hello to the Department of Social Work, Bhopal School of Social Sciences, India. Welcome. Yeah, please continue to use the space to share your thoughts or ask questions. Our last presentation for today is Technology, Children and Parenting by Matthew George. Matthew holds an MSW from Indoor School of Social Work. He has more than 10 years of experience working in the mental health field in India. His Canadian experience includes 6 years in child protection, 6 years in Canadian Mental Health Association, of which 3 years was in the Mental Health and Justice Program, 1 year in the Court Support Program, and 2 years in the ACT team. He's currently working as a social worker in the Child and Adolescent Mental Health Unit at Brampton Civic Hospital. Matthew is passionate about working in the mental health field, and he's also a creative writer. Now, Matthew has chosen this topic as it is truly relevant to our times, and we are all familiar with this. We have made huge strides as a result of technology. It has greatly eased our lives, improved our access to resources, knowledge, and helped build our capacities. As we are all experiencing, especially in this pandemic period, we are able to socialize, work, study, even do our shopping, all from the luxury of our homes, thanks to the technological advancement. However, anything that is used in excess and that is more than we need, it can create issues and dysfunction in our lives at the cost of our physical and mental health. Often, as caregivers, we are faced with situations where our children are using technology excessively, and we don't know what to do. But that's okay, because we are all in this together and we are learning together. So we've been witnessing a sharp spike in mental health concerns among children and youth related to excessive use of technology and social media. So Matthew will talk about how to keep our children safe, help them maintain safety while using technology, conditions that lead to excessive use of technology, and impact of excessive use of technology on children and youth. He also shares some practical tips and resources for parents. Over to you, Matthew.
Good morning. Thank you, Bindu. Thank you, Maso, for giving me this opportunity. I would also like to thank Anu, who just presented just right before me, because family, parents, and parental education, all those things are also very important in my presentations too. So I would just like to continue as from where Anu left. So when everyone or every child grows successfully with the support of technology, all are happy, especially parents. Having said this, it is also very important for all the parents to be aware about their children's technological use. I know it's a big component of our everyday life and which needs a long discussion. Anyway, technological development, especially information technology advancement, has become another factor that contribute mental health struggles among people. This reliance on digital technology has fueled concerns from parents, teachers, governments, and young people themselves that digital technologies and social media are exacerbating feelings of anxiety and depression, disturbing sleep patterns, leading to cyberbullying and distorted body image. Common technology that normally children use: laptops, tablets, iPads, iPods, gaming systems, smartphones, and wearable technologies. And how they use what mode: texting, Snapchat, Twittering, online gambling, WhatsApp, video gaming, Instagram, Facebook, virtual worlds, live streaming, YouTube. All are connected these days. The internet use has become a huge part of young people's lives. With internet access on all smartphones, young people can interact with their social networks around the clock. Technology gives young people quick access to information, and that can help with their schoolwork and to collaborate with classmates online. Some young people can develop problems with technology. Technology use becomes a problem when it interferes with young people's ability to do the things that are expected of them or important to them, such as attending school regularly and on time, maintaining good grades, participating in family life, and engaging in face-to-face relationship. Things to reflect while we discuss or while we have an idea on technology use. Where do young people use technology? What are they doing with it? How much time they spend using it? What one should be mindful about? Place. Do young people use the internet in a common place where parents can monitor and make sure what they are doing, or are they using it in a place where the others cannot see what they are doing? Connect. Young people, technology related activities, dangerous or not? Connecting and meeting with strangers in person, do they post inappropriate pictures of them or others? Are they choosing activities that are not appropriate for their age? Time. Do young people use technology as a tool to accomplish their goals, such as homework, etc.? Or do they deprive sleep, spending too many hours in internet at night instead of going to bed? Has technology become center of their lives? Do they use it, exclude their daily activities? These are very important for the parents to notice, when they live with the kids or when they rear the kids. It's not only for the parents, and also any caretakers, any caregiving, roles. Existing conditions that might lead to excessive use of technology, like people with ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, hyper focusing on a task in a game they might enjoy, but it is not going to help them to improve their attention and focus. Autism spectrum disorder, finding it easier to socialize online than in person because they don't have to use any of their intelligence for that. It is very easy. It is user friendly. They don't have to really struggle or work hard to accomplish certain tasks. Gambling problem, constant access to casino and other gambling sites. Learning disabilities, spending time online to avoid thinking about school or doing homework. Post-traumatic stress, connecting with other people in chats to reenact the traumatic situation compared to chatting about lots of different things in life. Self-harming behaviors, frequenting websites where youth share suicidal thoughts and self-harming techniques. Social anxiety, constantly entering role-playing video gaming worlds where they pretend they are someone else, compared to doing this occasionally. Social anxiety, virtual interaction, avoids real contact. These days, I think the youngsters try to live in the virtual world because everything is given on their fingertips. So they try to avoid. This makes them to be away from the real world, the face-to-face touch, Substance use problem, researching ways to use alcohol and other drugs, searching and setting up buys and ordering prescriptions, medications online. Can you become addicted to technology? Technology addiction is an umbrella. It's an umbrella term That may include excessive behaviors related to playing video games, watching YouTube, cybersex and online porn, gambling, eBay and other online auctions and shopping, social media, excessive texting, and smartphone overuse. Excessive use of technology may not produce physical symptoms in the same way as excessive use of alcohol and other drugs does, but it can lead to significant negative impacts on the life of young person, leading to poorer physical and mental health concerns. Stigma. Using the term addiction for those types of behavior may make some people feel stigmatized. Stigma refers to negative prejudice and negative behavior discrimination toward people with substance use and mental health problems. Prejudice and discrimination may prevent people from seeking help, but if a behavior is preventing someone from functioning in the real world, it needs to be addressed. 10 tips for parents. These are some of the tips that we normally use in our employment situation when we deal with kids and their families. So I thought it would be helpful for some of you, or it could be an awareness for some of you, or you can also share these ideas with other people too. Consider how you use technology. You are modeling behavior for your children. So parents can be a model. Based on their expectation, how their children should grow up with technology. Before giving your children access to technology, talk to them about the safe use. Communicate openly and honestly. Discuss possible effects and dangers of using the internet and social media. Talk to your children about how to integrate technology into their lives in ways that respect others. For example, some families have no texting rules during mealtime and family events. Be aware of children's internet activities and what they access. Create rules that both you and your child agree to be based on their age and past internet use. Because this is very important, because when you give a permission or when you set certain rules with your child regarding the use of internet, you should be aware about the past use. I mean, how your child was using, or how much friendly your child was with internet use, because that can have a lot of impact while you set these rules. Spend time learning about the internet and video games popular with youth. Participate with your children in these activities. They are more likely to listen to you if they think you know what you are talking about. How your children use a shared computer in an open area for your home where you can monitor what they are doing. Help your children lead balanced lives and set limits around your children's use of technology. Encourage them to take part in offline activities such as sports, music, drama, and in-person get-togethers with friends and families. Help your children set priorities. For example, doing homework comes before spending time texting or playing video games. Enabling parental controls in the devices in a supportive way, filtering age-appropriate contents. If you have seen signs that indicate your child may be developing a problem from their technology use, talk with your child about your concern. You could also contact a health professional when you feel that it is a concern. This is where parents have to be cautious. Parents should be able to read or identify some of the warning signs, whether their children's internet use is, taking away them from their normal life, derooting themselves, derailing from their daily routine activities. So that's a warning sign when parents, and it depends upon every child and every family. It depends upon it depends. So here are some of the resources that I have just put it for your awareness or understanding. where if you see that there are some struggles that your child is undergoing just because of ongoing use of technology, you could also approach, call, or go into this website and find help. So that's all from me today. So once again, I thank for giving me an opportunity to present this. I know that, again, I'm telling you, it's a big, huge subject that to be talked, but I thought, at least I could give a hint. That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Matthew. I know it's such a hard, it's so hard to compile all that information, but I think you did a good job, especially covering some of the parenting tips, and also the warning signs. Thanks also again for identifying stigma as an issue, because I personally think that's also a big issue in everywhere, right? Not only in our community. Stigma can prevent and discourage young people and their parents from seeking help in a timely way. So the more we are the more we are aware of the stigma, the sooner we will be able to overcome it in our lives and proactively seek help from a professional. So always remember, we encourage you to seek help from professionals. We are now over with our presentations, and we have about a little more than 15 minutes for the Q&A session. Thank you all for your questions and also for your comments and sharing your thoughts. We may not be able to cover all the questions, but you can always contact the MassWord team for that. We will cover a few of the questions here. So I think this will be going to Bijumon Peter. Bijumon, during your presentation, you mentioned P as a parenting intervention. Could you please elaborate on P, please?
I'm glad that this question was asked. Because I didn't have time to elaborate as I was discussing about some of the parenting strategies. Positive parenting program, popularly known as P, is an evidence-based parenting intervention, which was developed by the University of Queensland, Australia, especially the psychology department of Queensland University, to teach and coach parents to promote more positive and desirable behaviors. This has been proven very successful and very effective. And this is delivered in different levels. And if I can give you a few examples, it's done as a primary care, that's to support parents with kids who are within the age range of 0 to 12. And standard P, which is a standard parenting strategy. Stepping stone P is another level that's primarily to support parents who have a child with disability. And family transitions P is another category of P that's available to support parents who are divorced and still parenting their kids. So these are like delivered in different levels. And to give you a couple of examples, of the strategies that they use under P. For example, descriptive praise. I'm sure we all use praise to support our kids, and we say, well done, good job, etc. But P says that's not sufficient. You have to describe what they have done. For example, if you say, let's say, I asked you to tidy up toys, and you have tidied up the toys, and see how does our living room look. It looks really tidy. Good job. Very well done. So you are describing the activity of the child to continue to promote more positive behaviors and help them understand what they actually did. Very elaborate. Another strategy is incidental teaching. When we get a question from our kids, we sometimes dismiss them. We say we are busy, something like that. Instead, what P proposes is use that as an opportunity or as a platform to explore more on their questions and respond appropriately so that they will be able to learn and practice more, desirably later. They'll be able to use strategies more desirably. So it's like using, a a question as a platform to respond and elaborate and teach them more. So these are some of the examples, and I'm sure like you will be able to Google and find out, like different strategies on triple P positive parenting program. Thank you.
Thank you, Bijamon. The next question is for Matthew. Matthew, how does the time children spend using digital technology impact their overall well-being?
Yeah, Bindu, I mean, it's a wonderful question. And again, it's a big thing to be discussed. But again, what I would like to tell you is that it is the way we balance. I mean, we could say like computer hygiene, just like sleep hygiene. If you don't have enough sleep, if you don't have proper sleep, if you deprive your sleep, you have problems, right? It is the same way like technology. When you use I mean, there should be a hygiene, how much a person has to incorporate with the technology into his life on a day-to-day basis. And that's one thing. And how much that is impacting impacting your life in a negative way or in a positive way. If it is in a positive way, it should be healthy. But if it is in a negative way, like for example, I would say that if a child is sitting at night 5-6 hours playing video game and says in the morning, I don't want to get up, I am tired, I don't want to go to school. This is just a very simple example. So that becomes a problem. So there should be I would say a computer hygiene, a balancing between the use. That's I would like to say that. I'm putting it in there. Yeah, that's all.
Thank you, Matthew. I like the computer hygiene term here. Okay, our next question is for Anu. Anu, as a parent, how can I help my child regulate his anger?
This is a question which I also had as a parent. How can I control my child's anger? So first of all, we need to understand that we cannot control anyone's emotions. The only thing you can do as a parent is to teach your child how to regulate or manage their emotion. So the first step is to teach your kids about feelings and encourage them to talk about their feelings, because anger is considered as a secondary emotion and there are other underlying feelings and emotions under that anger. So talking about their feelings before they burst out as anger will help for kids to regulate their anger. And you can say it is okay to feel angry, but it's not okay to hit. Then you can teach some coping skills, like, because they want to know the appropriate ways to deal with their anger. So instead of telling, don't hit your brother, explain what they can do when they feel frustrated. For example, next time, use your words or walk away from him when you feel angry. You can also ask your child, what could you do instead of hitting or throwing your toys? And I would say the best way to teach children how to deal with anger is by showing them how you deal with your emotions when you feel angry. So in the moments when you're feeling upset or angry, you can let them know, right now, mom or dad is feeling angry or frustrated because of so and so reason. I'll take a few deep breaths. So when you do that, you are showing them it's okay to be angry, but you can manage your anger and move in with a strategy. Sometimes we are human beings and sometimes we lose control in front of our kids. So that time you can say, I'm sorry that you had to see me yelling today when I was mad. I should have gone out for a walk to cool me off. So you can try that. And if you notice that your kid is struggling to get his anger under control, or if it is leading to an aggressive or violent behavior, I advise you to always seek professional help, because a trained professional can rule out if there are any underlying mental health concerns, and they can offer help in creating some behavior management plan.
Thank you, Anu. Thank you for walking us through the emotional coaching again. And we have something similar, a strategy in Triple P, isn't it, Bijamon? If I remember right, the teen Triple P. So Triple P also includes that. We have one question here. I've got one question from the chat. Is COVID-19 lockdown creating a new kind of obsessive compulsive online conference participation among some people? I know some people attending conferences after conferences, whether it may relate to their profession or not. And this question is for Matthew.
I think it depends. I mean, can you hear me? Yeah, I think it depends. We don't know what are their level of involvement and how much they involve into that. And if they cannot do away without this, that becomes a problem. I think it depends on every individual, and we need to, without knowing how that person is involving, what are the nature of that person's involvement, what are the obsession that he has, and why he is so compelled. Is he compelled to be on the online? Like, I think it needs to be researched a little more, because we can't. If it is an obsession for him, I mean, if it is an obsession that is coming into his mind involuntary, and it is compelling him to sit on it, it could be. I would say that, right?
Thank you, Matthew. To everyone, if you need more information, feel free to contact the MASWA team, the executive team, and they're happy to connect you with the other other members. Priya shared this, Priya Abraham shared this information. A good read for self-regulation is by Stuart Shankar. Thank you. Yeah. Is there any other questions? Also, Alan has shared the email ID, MASWA's email ID too. maswacanada@gmail.com. Well, we have a few more minutes.
It was really, really a great presentation. Gives us in-depth knowledge about the child mental health. I truly appreciate all the speakers for their effort and time.
Thank you, Sonu.
Thank you.
So once again, thank you all for your comments, your suggestions, your additional information, very helpful, and for your enthusiasm. Huge round of applause for our MASWA executive team. There has been a lot of hard work that went behind it, weeks of hard work. And I hope it was helpful and useful. Also a special mention to our expert panel of presenters, Saji, Anu, Bijumon Peter, and Matthew George. Thank you to all the audience all around the world. With that being said, I wish you a good day or good evening.
Thank you.
Just before we conclude, I just wanted to mention something. We would like to express our sincere gratitude to Mr. Sunil Sebastian, Realtor from Home Life, and Rishani Whitwell from Whitwell Law for supporting and powering the child mental health session, a shared responsibility. So thank you from Malayali Association of Social Workers in Ontario. Thank you, Mr. Sunil and Rishani.